sound of his laughter didn't just fill the courtroom, it curdled the air. Richard Sterling, a man who owned half the skyline of Chicago, looked at his trembling wife, Anna, and chuckled as she stood up to dismiss her attorney. He thought he had already won. He thought she was just the quiet housewife he'd controlled for 15 years. But Richard made a fatal calculation that day. He forgot that before she was a mother, before she was a victim, she was something else entirely. What happened next didn't just silence his laughter. It made the stenographer gasp and the judge drop his gavel. This is the story of the day the prey became the predator. The Honorable Judge Harrison P. Miller was not a man known for his patience. Sitting high on the mahogany bench of courtroom 4B in the Cook County Circuit Court, he looked down over the rim of his spectacles with the weariness of a man who had seen too many divorces and not enough justice. "Mrs. Sterling," Judge Miller said, his voice grating like gravel. "Do I understand this correctly? You wish to dismiss Mr. Henderson? We are 5 minutes into opening statements." Anna Sterling stood alone at the defendant's table. She wore a simple charcoal suit, bought off the rack at a department store 3 years ago. It hung slightly loose on her frame, a testament to the weight she had lost over the last 6 months of hell. Her hands, resting on the polished oak table, were shaking, not violently, but with a fine, persistent tremor that she tried to hide by clasping them together. Across the aisle, Richard Sterling leaned back in his leather chair. He was the picture of unassailable power. His suit was a bespoke Italian cut, midnight blue, costing more than Anna's first car. He whispered something to his attorney, Marcus Thorne, a man known in Chicago legal circles as the Butcher. And then Richard did it. He laughed. It wasn't a loud guffaw. It was a low, dismissive chuckle, a sound wet with condescension. It was the sound a boot makes when it steps on an insect. "Your Honor," Marcus Thorne stood up, smoothing his silk tie. "With all due respect to Mrs. Sterling, this is a complex financial case involving assets in the 9 figures. If she dismisses her counsel now, she is essentially forfeiting her defense. My client, Mr. Sterling, just wants to finalize this so everyone can move on. Perhaps a mental health evaluation is in order before she makes such a rash decision." Richard smirked, tapping his gold fountain pen against the table. The rhythm was maddening. Tap, tap, tap. Anna took a breath. She could smell the stale coffee on Mr. Henderson's breath as he leaned away from her, packing his briefcase. He was a court-appointed lawyer, overworked and underprepared, who had told her just that morning to take the settlement. "Take the condo and the stipend, Anna," he had said. "Richard will bury you if you fight." She looked at Richard. For 15 years, that man had defined her reality. He had told her what to wear, who to speak to, and what to think. He had convinced the world that he was the benevolent philanthropist, and she was the fragile, lucky wife. "Mrs. Sterling?" the judge pressed, his eyebrows knitting together. "I need an answer." Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor." "Speak up, please," the court reporter requested, fingers hovering over the steno machine. Anna closed her eyes for a split second. She remembered the night Richard had locked her out of their Lakeshore Drive penthouse in the freezing rain because she'd forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning. She remembered the way he smiled when he told their friends she was confused again. She opened her eyes. The tremor in her hands stopped. "Yes, Your Honor," Anna said, her voice clear, resonating off the high ceiling. "I am dismissing Mr. Henderson. I will be representing myself." Richard let out a louder laugh this time, shaking his head. "Oh, this is rich," he muttered, loud enough for the front row to hear. "Quiet, Mr. Sterling," Judge Miller snapped, though he looked back at Anna with pity. Ma'am, I am required to warn you. You are going up against a senior partner from Vance and Hart. The rules of evidence are strict. I cannot help you. If you make a mistake, you will live with the consequences. Are you absolutely certain? I am certain. Very well. The judge sighed, scribbling on his notepad. Mr. Henderson, you are excused. Mrs. Sterling, since you are now pro se, you may deliver your opening statement. You have 10 minutes. The room went deadly silent. The air conditioning hummed, a low drone of tension. Richard leaned over to Marcus Thorne. Watch this, he whispered. She can't even order dinner without asking me first. She's going to crumble in 2 minutes. Anna walked out from behind the table. She didn't walk to the podium. Instead, she walked toward the jury box. Though there was no jury, only the empty seats, as this was a bench trial. She turned to face the judge, then pivoted to look directly at Richard. She held nothing. No notes, no legal pad, no water. 15 years ago, Anna began, her voice steady, possessing a strange, melodic cadence that seemed out of place in the sterile courtroom. I met Richard Sterling at a fundraising gala for the chaotic arts. He was charming, he was ambitious, and he told me that he wanted a partner. Marcus Thorne stood up, looking bored. Objection? Relevance? We are here to divide assets, not take a walk down memory lane. Overruled, Judge Miller said, leaning forward. It's an opening statement, Mr. Thorne. I'll allow some latitude. Continue, Mrs. Sterling. He told me he wanted a partner, Anna continued, locking eyes with Richard. But what he really wanted was a vault. Richard's smile faltered slightly, his brow furrowed. Vault? What was she talking about? A vault to hide things in, Anna said, pacing slowly toward the plaintiff's table. You see, Your Honor, Mr. Thorne is right. This is a complex financial case, but not because the assets are difficult to calculate. It is complex because they do not exist where they say they exist. She stopped 3 feet from Richard. The smell of his cologne, sandalwood, and expensive arrogance wafted toward her. It used to make her heart race with fear. Now, it just smelled like rot. My husband is asking for full custody of our children and an 80-20 split of the marital assets, claiming that his business, Sterling Dynamics, is currently operating at a loss due to market volatility. He claims our liquidity is low. He claims I am an unstable spendthrift. She turned back to the judge. But Mr. Sterling has made a critical error. He assumes that because I have been a stay-at-home mother for a decade, I have ceased to be a person of intellect. He assumes that while he was in his office, I was merely painting my nails or attending luncheons. Anna walked back to her table and picked up a single, thick manila envelope. She didn't open it. She just set it down on the edge of the judge's bench with a heavy thud. Mr. Sterling forgot, Anna said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming ice-cold. He forgot that before I was Anna Sterling, I was Anna Vance. A ripple of confusion went through the courtroom. Judge Miller froze. He looked at the paperwork in front of him, then up at Anna. Vance? As in Vance and Hart? Richard's face went pale. The blood drained out of his cheeks so fast it looked like a physical blow. He gripped the armrests of his chair. Yes, Your Honor, Anna said. My maiden name is Vance. My father founded the firm that currently represents my husband. She pointed a finger at Marcus Thorne, who was now staring at her with his mouth slightly open. Mr. Thorne was a junior associate when I was finishing my residency at Forensic Accounting, Anna revealed. He probably doesn't remember me. I was in the back archives most of the time. But I remember him. She turned back to Richard. The silence in the room was now suffocating. The air felt thin. "I haven't practiced law in 15 years, Richard," she said softly. "But I didn't lose my license, and I certainly didn't lose my ability to read a balance sheet." "Objection!" Thorne shouted, his voice cracking. This is prejudicial. She is grandstanding." "Sit down, Mr. Thorne," Judge Miller barked, his eyes glued to Anna. "You laughed when I stood up, Richard," Anna said, taking a step closer to him again. "You laughed because you thought you were fighting a wife. But you're not. You're fighting a forensic accountant who has had access to your home office, your trash, and your unencrypted cloud backups for the last 3 years." Richard stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. "She's lying, Sit down, Mr. Sterling." The bailiff took a step forward, hand on his belt. Anna didn't flinch. "In this trial, Your Honor, I will not only prove that Sterling Dynamics is profitable, I will prove that Richard has been funneling marital assets into shell companies in the Cayman Islands and, more interestingly, into a private LLC registered under the name of his mistress." The gasp from the gallery was audible. "But that is not the twist, Your Honor," Anna said, a small, dangerous smile touching her lips, the first time she had smiled in months. "The twist is that I didn't just find the money." She tapped the manila envelope on the judge's bench. "I moved it." Richard's eyes bulged. "You what?" he whispered. "I moved it," Anna repeated. "Every time you transferred funds to Project Blue or Orion Holdings, I was there, mirroring the transactions. You thought you were hiding money from me? No, Richard, you were handing it to me." She looked up at the judge. "Opening statement concluded, Your Honor." The courtroom was absolutely silent for 5 full seconds. Judge Miller looked at the envelope, then at Richard Sterling, who looked like he was having a cardiac event, and finally at Anna, who stood tall, the tremors in her hands completely gone. "Mr. Thorne," Judge Miller said, his voice unusually high, "call your first witness, if you can." The tension in courtroom 4B had shifted so violently that the air felt pressurized. Marcus Thorne, the butcher, looked as though he'd been slapped with a wet fish. He shuffled his papers, his hands betraying a nervousness that never usually pierced his armor. He leaned in to whisper to Richard. "Is it true?" Thorne hissed. Is she that Vance?" Richard was staring at Anna, his eyes wide and unblinking. I don't know. She never talks about her family. Her dad died years ago. I thought they were estranged." "You idiot," Thorne muttered. He stood up, buttoning his jacket, trying to regain the alpha dominance that usually won him cases before lunch. "Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Mr. Arthur Pimsley to the stand." Anna sat calmly at her table. She pulled a fresh notepad from her bag and uncapped a simple black pen. She wrote one word: diversion. Arthur Pimsley was Richard's chief financial officer. A mousy man with spectacles thick enough to see into the future, he waddled to the stand, clutching a handkerchief. He looked at Richard for reassurance, but Richard was too busy staring at the back of his wife's head, trying to figure out when the woman who baked scones had become this. "Mr. Pimsley," Thorne began, pacing the floor, "can you describe the current financial state of Sterling Dynamics?" "Yes, sir," Pimsley squeaked. "It is dire. The market shift in microconductors has left us with significant overhead. We are bleeding cash. Mr. Sterling has actually forgone his salary for the last 2 quarters to keep the lights on." Thorne nodded solemnly. "So, the allegation that Mr. Sterling is hiding millions is preposterous," Pimsley said, gaining a little confidence. "The money simply isn't there. The ledgers are open. We are nearly bankrupt." "Thank you. No further questions." Thorne sat down, shooting a smug look at Anna. Let's see you handle a CFO, his eyes said. Anna stood up. She didn't rush. She walked to the podium and placed her hands on the wood. Mr. Pimsley, she said softly. How long have you worked for my husband? 12 years, Mrs. Sterling. And in those 12 years, have you ever signed a document without reading it? Pimsley scoffed. I am a certified public accountant, Mrs. Sterling. I read everything. Good, Anna said. She picked up a document from her table. Exhibit A, Your Honor. Copies for opposing counsel. She handed the papers to the bailiff. Mr. Pimsley, Anna continued. Do you recognize this document? Pimsley squinted at the paper. It appears to be a standard procurement invoice for office supplies from a vendor called Apex Logistics. And the amount? $45,000. A lot of paper clips, wouldn't you say, Mr. Pimsley? It's a large company, Anna nodded. And do you know who owns Apex Logistics? I assume it's a logistics firm. Turn to page 3, please. Pimsley turned the page. His face went grey. Can you read the name of the registered agent for Apex Logistics, Mr. Pimsley? Pimsley swallowed hard. He looked at Richard. Richard was shaking his head slightly, a subtle shut-up motion. I can't quite make it out. It says Arthur Pimsley, Anna read out loud, and the address listed is 42 Oak Creek Lane. That's your mother's house, isn't it, Arthur? The courtroom gasped again. Objection! Thorne shot up. Ambush! We haven't seen this document. It was in the discovery box you sent me, Mr. Thorne, Anna said coolly, not looking away from the witness. File 404, subfolder, MISC. You buried it deep, but you gave it to me. I guess you didn't think I'd look in the MISC folder. Judge Miller leaned forward. Overruled. Answer the question, Mr. Pimsley. It must be a mistake, Pimsley stammered. Sweat was beading on his forehead. A mistake? Anna flipped another page. I have here 12 invoices from Apex Logistics over the last year, totaling $1.2 million, all paid by Sterling Dynamics, all deposited into a bank account at First National. She paused, letting the silence hang. And do you know what happens to the money once it hits that account, Arthur? I take the fifth, Pimsley whispered. You can't take the fifth in a civil divorce trial regarding corporate funds you managed, not without consequences, Judge Miller warned. Anna didn't wait. It gets transferred, within 24 hours, to an account in the name of R.S. Private. She walked up to the witness stand, leaning in close. Arthur, did Richard threaten to fire you if you didn't set this up? Objection, hearsay, speculation, Thorne was yelling now. I'm giving him a lifeline, Your Honor, Anna said, her voice sharp, because if he doesn't answer, he's looking at federal embezzlement charges. But if he was acting under duress from his CEO, Pimsley broke. He made me do it, Pimsley shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Richard. He told me he needed to hide the cash flow before the divorce filing. He said he'd ruin me if I didn't. Richard slammed his fist on the table. You traitorous little rat. Order. Judge Miller banged his gavel. Mr. Sterling, one more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. Mr. Thorne, control your client. Anna stepped back. No further questions.